I guess I'll just start out with this. So our video presentation that we had, we were up. Anyway, we didn't finish updating it. So it's the video where we had 2 kids. I think everyone's already seen that one. This is a Friends in Action video that they made just recently, but it basically talks about Friends in Action and what Friends in Action does to help other missionaries around the world. And it's really what we're doing in Vanuatu as well. So I'll play that and then I'll give a short update afterwards.
Imagine dedicating your life to spreading hope and love in the most remote corners of the world. You've spent years preparing through biblical, cross-cultural, language, and even safety training. Yet, as you stand among an unreached people group, you face challenges that no Bible school could truly prepare you for. How do you build a shelter for your family with only what the jungle provides? How do you hike 14 miles to nearby villages without roads? How do you ensure the highlands hear about Jesus when there's no airstrip? How can you sustain life in the desert without clean drinking water? Without construction skills, the proper tools, or resources to carry the cost of building such large-scale projects, how can a missionary effectively serve? This is where Friends in Action comes in. For over 30 years, FIA has ventured into the highest mountains, deepest valleys, densest jungles, and driest deserts to help missionaries who do just that. Through community development, clean water initiatives, relief services, supply delivery, and life skills training, FIA enables missionaries to stay longer, travel deeper, and reach further. We help to bring the message of God's Word to those who have never heard. So how does FIA make this happen? It starts with a request from a foreign national, missionary, or mission organization. Our team prayerfully considers how the project aligns with our mission. Next, we engage in design and engineering processes to select best practices. We then fundraise to gather financial backing to see the project through to completion. We acquire all necessary tools and materials, and finally, skilled volunteers are recruited. From plumbers to solar installers, carpenters to mechanics, our volunteers contribute over 10,000 hours of labor each year to impact more than 250,000 villagers through the projects and services assisting our mission partners. Our impact is profound. In West Africa, we've brought clean drinking water to hundreds of thousands of villagers through our well drilling work. In South and Central America, dozens of families thrive thanks to our community development projects. And hundreds more from the South Pacific have benefited from the solar and mechanical work undertaken by FIA teams. Regardless of the project type or size, Friends in Action International is moving Earth to share heaven, helping our mission partners reach the ends of the earth to effectively share the gospel. Because behind every project, our purpose remains the same, to help bring the truth of Jesus to those who have not yet heard, until all have heard.
All right, well, I guess I already updated you all back when I first got back, so everybody should be up to date on where we're at and what's going on. So I was just I actually didn't know if I was gonna be here today. I had a small inpatient, or what do they call it, in and out sort of operation done last week, and it didn't go like it was supposed to. So there's been some other complications because of that. They got me on pills, a bunch of different pills, and sometimes I'm throwing up, and other times my head's pounding, and other times I can't stand up. So anyway, I'm here today, but I don't have a whole sermon for y'all. I was just going to share another little testimony that how God blessed us, which I think y'all probably heard the story through Dad or maybe in the newsletters. I know we put it in the newsletter.
Getting the truth.
But anyway, sometimes things might get distorted through the lenses we hear them through. But anyway, and then I'll open it up for some Q&A afterwards. So, how old was Amos when everything happened? 8 months. How many of y'all know what happened with Amos? All right. Well, Guess we'll give you a little more detail. All right. So anyway, so wait, you just said how old Amos was, and I already forgot.
8 months.
8 months. 8 months. I knew he was older than that. Okay. So anyway, we were over there for a little bit. Amos was about 8 months old, and Amos had a fever. Mostly, we're not too worried when our kids are sick. We're more relaxed parents, I think. But anyway, Amos had run a fever for about 2 days, and now Jen was a little bit. At first, we just thought it was because he was teething. So then Jen just Googled that night before, what to do if your baby's had running a fever for 3 days straight, or should you be worried, or this or that. And we woke up the next morning about 5:30ish, somewhere in there, and I went to the restroom, and I heard Jen start saying something from the other room. She was panicking and saying something's wrong with Amos. And so I came out and looked at Amos, and he was starting to convulse and have a seizure, which I had friends that had seizures back when I was younger, so I'd seen seizures before. So I was like, he's just having a seizure, and we decided, all right, well, we'll go to the hospital. So we got all the other kids out of bed, and we threw them in the car, and we started leaving for the hospital. We got to the first gate, and the first gate, we have a lady that we allow her, she keeps some horses in the front property, and they had taken a rope and they tied, every once in a while they were tying the gate shut. So sometimes it would take a while to unlock the gate. So Jen's like, just drive straight through it. So we drove through the fence, and then got down to the bottom one, and somebody hadn't latched it, so we drove through that one as well. And as we were praying as we were going, and Amos's seizure was getting worse, and he had been seizuring at this point for 10 minutes probably. And we're getting closer to town, and Jen's been praying, and we're both praying. But Jen was praying, God, please give him peace. Please give him peace. Let him relax, Lord. And right around that time, his whole body just went limp, just completely limp, and his bowels let loose, and he just was laying there limp. And I've seen enough things die that it just looked just like he had just slipped away. And anyway, so I was telling Jen, I was like, God gave him peace. Now God's got to give us peace, And Jen said he wasn't breathing. She couldn't tell that he was breathing. I didn't think to even check for a pulse. But at the time I was driving as fast as the vehicle could possibly go. And it turns out he was having a vacant seizure, which apparently even when you're having a vacant seizure, a pulse can even be hard to find. So a vacant seizure is basically just where your body just goes completely limp, and you can't. A lot of times people think somebody died from a vacant seizure. So we're driving to town, and for about 8 minutes, of our life, we thought Amos was dead. So we were praying. And I remember this was right after Hannah had a miscarriage. And I remember thinking, like, I couldn't empathize with Hannah because I didn't know what that was like, and I still don't. But at the time, I remember thinking, man, if I lost one of my kids, I think I would wish I'd never had that kid, so I wouldn't have that hole, And when that happened, I remember thinking, I just had all these images of Amos going through my mind, like how he'd lean around his toys he was playing with, and like stare at me or smile, and all those images were just flashing through my mind. I was thinking, oh, I'll never see that again. But I was also grateful. I just remember feeling really grateful that God allowed us to have him in our lives the time that we did. And so Jen and I were actually thanking the Lord for giving us Amos for the time that we had him. And we just made it to town, and as we were going around the last corner, Jen was praying. She said, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be his name. And right at that point, Amos let out a little cough. I mean, it was really faint, but boy, we were so excited. So we're like, he's still alive, he's breathing. It's actually the dash cam recorded most of it. So, but anyway, so Amos was still, and at this point we're like, well, I guess, when we thought he was dead, we didn't know where to go. We thought, well, I guess we still go to the hospital. So we got there, and well, actually we went to the clinic first, and the clinic was closed, so we turned around and drove up this hill to the hospital and got in there. And at first the door was locked and they wouldn't let us in. Finally they came and they let us in, and they moved off this bed and they laid Amos on the bed, and there's blood and stuff on the bed still. And we were calling other people, and other people, we were having trouble getting a hold of people. And finally we got a hold of one of our nurse friends, Rachel Cochran, and she said she would come right up. And then we were having trouble getting the doctor to come in to look at Amos. But at this stage, Amos was awake. Finally, Rachel came in, and then a little bit later, the lady that has the horses in front of our property, they had seen, or people in the village next to us saw us leaving and knew something was wrong. So she came up there to see us, and she noticed, we were just super excited that Amos was awake, but she noticed, she's like, he's not looking at anybody. He's just staring straight off. So people were trying to get his attention. So she's like, I'm gonna go get the doctor. And we knew this lady, she likes to be called the crazy horse lady, but she's a very strong-willed lady. Anyway, she basically found the doctor and drug him in by his ear. I mean, she really drugged the doctor in. So she's like, something's wrong, So the doctor started trying to work on Amos, and then the doctor could not. He was pinching Amos as hard as he could. He was moving him around, and Amos was just blank. It was like he was awake, he was breathing, but he wasn't there. And then the doctor started looking panicked and bothered, and that doesn't help the parents. So then Rachel was there, the nurse, and I was asking her, I was like, is it possible he could have like brain damage from this? And she said, no, he'd have to have a seizure for a really long time to have brain damage. And I was like, it was probably 15, well, she asked me how long it was, and I was like, it was probably 15 to 20 minutes. And she was like, oh. So it was like, she didn't say anything after that. And I was like, well, how long is a long time? And she said, 15 minutes is a very long time for a seizure. So she just didn't say anything after that, and I was like, oh, because Amos was just sitting there, So we did what we could there, and then they moved us into another room. At the time, there was a really bad virus or something going around, and everyone had the runs. So I guess in one way it was kind of nice. They cleared out a storage room for us, and they put us in a little storage room, so we had a room all to ourselves. And then, which was safer for him, so he wouldn't catch whatever everyone else had. They did a few other tests for meningitis, I think it was, and a few other things. And I really liked the doctor that was there was a local doctor, but before he went to do the spinal tap on him, I asked if we could pray, and I prayed, and then the doctor prayed, and other people in the room prayed. So anyway, that was nice too. Then we went back over, and Amos still wasn't with us yet. He was awake and breathing, and I went to pick up, after a few hours, I went to pick up some stuff, and we had another missionary family that came to visit us, and when they came to visit us, the wife prayed for Amos. And I was just walking back into the room as she finished praying, but at the end of her prayer, she prayed, God, just please help him to wake up and start looking at people. And as soon as she finished praying, Amos looked right at Jen and started responding to people, which was another answer to prayer. We were really excited about that. And then just recently, actually a year and a half, 2 years after that, we were just talking with that missionary family, and we found out that the wife, she was under a lot of pressure and having different things going on in her life at the time, and she cried out to God and told God, and she was like, God, if I don't see, like, I need to see a sign from you. I need to see that you're there and that you hear me, and or that she was just. I don't want to share everything, but she was having a hard time in her life, and she had just prayed that morning, and then she finds out we're in the hospital. And then she comes to visit us in the hospital, and right after she prayed, God answered that prayer. And anyway, that was a big stepping point in her life that helped her move back to God. And we didn't even know that at the time, but God was using that to work in other people's lives. And anyway, through that, Amos kept on getting better. We never found out what caused the seizures. They told us that he has febrile seizures. So, what it means is anytime he runs a temperature over 100.4. So not 104, but 100.4, just barely over 100 degrees, and he can start having a seizure. So thankfully, he's not had another one. There was one time his temperature was right around 100, and he started spasming again, but we got the temperature back down. But anytime he's running fever now, we're basically checking him every hour and through the night to make sure we're keeping his temperature down. So just please pray with us for Amos and keeping his temperature down. And Lord willing, once he hits 5, he shouldn't have these seizures again. I've talked to some people. I talked to the people over at Whippoorwill, and they said their son had them up until 7 or 8. But anyway, yeah, God just came through and answered those prayers, and we still have Amos, and just super grateful for Amos and the blessing he's been to us in our life, and just God, that he's merciful and gave us a second chance with Amos. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much the more detailed version. Is there something I missed, Jen?
Thankful for Matt and Lydia being there.
Yes, Matt and Lydia come in and help. If we hadn't had Matt and Lydia there to help us, we wouldn't have had all the kids in the place, or I would have had to leave Jen. So Matt and Lydia were a massive blessing to us too during that time. Lydia wasn't the missionary that prayed for us for the record. I'm sure Lydia was praying for us, but she wasn't. Anyway, sorry. We wonder maybe that's possible that could be what has stunted Amos's speech development. But our nurse friend was saying if he were to have something serious like damage at this young time in his life is when neuroplasticity is the most he'll bounce back, and we might not ever know that he had damage from it. So anyway. We were trying to get a flight out of there, and just complications of that, and just merciful that God, or we're thankful that God.
You played for the park.
Yeah. The Air Vanuatu and Vanuatu, the airline that the government owns, has kind of collapsed and is now getting repurchased. The flights that we ended up flying out of Vanuatu on. Was just a charter flight. So a company that owns these planes. There's 3 companies in Vanuatu. Well, there was. There's 2 companies now, but one of the best one there is the one that we tried to charter a flight with. We flew the plane with them, and then 5 days after we flew out on that plane, that same plane crashed 5 days after with the same pilot. And the pilot had also crashed his car 3 days prior to that. So don't know what's going on there. But anyway, again, God protected us with the flight. And I guess we have a lot of testimonies when God's protected us. But really, most likely, even in our own lives here, God protects us so many times, and we probably don't even know. We don't even know that the deer almost jumped out in front of us, or that car cut us off, or so many times God protects us and we don't even know it. So just grateful to Him and His mercies towards us. Any questions or? Yes, ma'am.
How was their food over there?
Their food? There are some foods that's pretty good. There's one meal called lap lap salsa, and they take yam and they mash it up, and then they'll take a chicken normally. Sometimes up in Big Bay, their style is they'll take a pigeon, and they don't gut it most of the time. They just put it in there, and it's actually really good though. They take coconut, so they scratch the meat out of the coconut, and then they put water with that and squish it all over everything. And it's really good. But now there's other things they cook like flying bat, flying fox, big fruit bat. And that one, apparently some people fry it. I haven't had it fried. The way I had it was boiled. And they didn't skin it or gut it or bleed it out. They just hot boiled it. So it really reminded me of working on the hog farm when I used to have to scoop out the pigs that had already started decomposing. That smell, there's some things that you smell and you're like, I wonder what that would taste like. And then it tastes like the smell, you know? That fruit bat tasted like I expected it to taste. It is horrible. I think of the hog farm when I was like, yeah. So, but yeah, they do have some good foods over there. They got a lot of.
I just wondered about that because we watched some of the street foods on TV and they have the Chinese cooking certain things and stuff like that, and I was wondering, you didn't eat no slugs?
No, not slugs, just fruit bats.
Okay, just wonder about that.
Yeah.
Some weird foods that they fix over that way.
Some of them are pretty good though. Anybody know what a lower keat is? It's a parrot. They have them over in Australia. It's a parrot. It's got a really weird tongue. If you ever look at its tongue, it kind of opens up like a flower, and it eats pollen. They eat those, and those are very, very tasty. Almost the tastiest bird I've ever tasted. But I think the nicest bird I've ever had was over in Senegal. These pigeons are ducks.
Okay, I just wondered about that.
I'll stick with chicken.
I don't know what you're missing out on.
Chicken or turkey?
Any other questions?
So the project you're working on now in Vanuatu, the project they're working on is the water project?
That's our biggest project right now that we're working towards getting finished. But that project's still going to be years, like we're just now starting to break down on that. And that's going to be years before that's finished. Lord willing, what we're praying about now is the possibility of drilling the wells. And we're trying to work with a local guy. There's only one guy on our island that drills. And if we can get him up there to drill and find out if we can hit water, because we took a little survey thing that does these ground penetration scans. And it looks like there's water at 70 to 80 meters. So if we can hit water there and we can use a drill rig, we can get the water to these villages quicker, but also there's more redundancy because each village will have a source that's kind of a standalone source, so it won't depend on that pipe or something happening to the pipe. They'll stand up better to earthquakes. Also, if we do it this way, we'll be able to drill wells all over the island or in different islands. So we're not limited to just that area that gravity allows us to go with the current water project. Other projects, we've got a big, we're trying to get the roof finished on our workshop when we get back. The first big project we have coming up is a solar project. There was a company over in Pennsylvania that donated a whole lot of solar panels for Vanuatu, interacting and everything. So they retired their old panels and got new panels and donated their old panels to us, which are still good panels. So we had to buy some batteries and some other equipment, but we will be getting that installed early this coming year, and that will be amazing because we'll have power for people when they come to work on the water project, or for people from Big Bay if they need a place to stay in town, or potentially teams coming to work with Matt. Either way, we'll have electricity because right now, we tell people when they come over to stay with us, we tell them it's glamping, which is glorified camping. So they have a house, they have cold running water, hot running water half the time, but they have water and a place to sleep on. It might not be the most comfortable bed. They might have bugs getting at them, but anyway, now when they come, they'll have electricity at night, possibly internet now with Starlink and if we get everything set up properly. So yeah, it'll be a lot nicer. They won't have AC, but nobody really needs AC. They'll have fans to run at night.
Yeah.
Fans do make a big difference in Vanuatu.
Does Jim have to feed all his teams when they come?
So most of the time, Jim's doing all the cooking. I think we're gonna make a rule in the future. Babe, how many teams did we have last year?
5.
Just 5 teams?
I think so.
What was our biggest team?
20.
20. Yeah. So Jen's got 4 kids to take care of, and then me. Whenever there's a team there, it's kind of like they're all kids. Like you have to do all these little because they don't know your workshop. They don't know. They can't go to town and buy it. They don't. So you have to do like all these little things for them, and it's like you've got 20 people constantly coming and asking you questions. How do you do this? Or where do you find this? Or how do how do you normally? So it's a lot of different stuff like that. Anyway, so. I have like 20 kids, and then Jen has the 4 kids, plus trying to make meals. A lady that came on the last team and helped Jen, she told Jen, she's like, from now on, you need to tell Friends in Action and everyone else, like, you can't send a team over more of 5 people or something like that without sending a cook with them, which is, I definitely agree with that. So we're trying to get more ladies involved on the mission trips. And it's that's our plan. Any other questions?
You said that they send like teams of like teenagers, so they're like basically learning the mission, right?
Most of the time it's older people. The last team we had there were 2 teenagers. But the one the parents came with, and she was really good at helping with the kids, and then her friend came. But then we had we had a couple 18-year-olds. Now these guys they're skilled welders, so welders like the and then we had a couple operators, but mostly a lot of welders. But yeah, that was probably our youngest team we've ever had, and we had probably 5 people under 20? Something like that. So, oh no, not under 20, under 25.
Yeah.
Under 25, yeah.
I was just wondering if they were like sending people, basically having you guys train other people or something. It's
Well,
you want help, we'll send you help, and here and train these people how to help.
mostly they're trying to send people that have skill sets in certain things. If there are people that don't really have much of a skill set, there's still so many different things running around in between. But most of the time we have older people coming over. I think older people they're at a stage in life where they're not working a full-time job and stuff, and they have retirement saved up. But we do really appreciate and enjoy getting them.
Well, I was thinking of that verse where Paul told Timothy, teach able men who are eager to able to teach others also. So I'm like, are you the able men who's able to teach others also? So,
We try when we have. We're hoping to get more. If you please pray with us that we can get another family to come work alongside us in Vanuatu, another missionary family. 2, we'd really like to get a young couple in Vanuatu, a national family that would be willing to come work alongside us as well. That's what we're really praying for. So look at most of the guys that are good hard workers are leaving the country. They're going overseas to work overseas, and the other ones already have a good job. So it's hard to find somebody that's willing and eager to work that's not already working. So it's easy to find guys that are lazing around the house and not doing anything, but those aren't the guys that want to work for you anyway. So, all right, one more.
What time is it?
Oh, I didn't know we were past 2 o'clock. We got one more question? All right, well, I guess I'll turn it back over to Dad here.